800-585-9396, or you can text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait just a moment. You get a reply. Put your name and your comment or question in there, and we will do our best to work it into the program. But today, Debbie, we're going to be asking for our listeners' takes on adoption, and if they have been impacted by adoption in any way. For example, having been adopted, if you're adoptive parents. Maybe you are somebody who your parents adopted a child into your family. You're a biological son or daughter, and they brought this new bundle of joy into your family through adoption. So we want to hear people's takes on this, Debbie, and just really come away, as we say, a little bit better at the end of the program.
So have you been part of an adoption? We want to hear from you. Let us in on your life, and so we can get a better understanding of the beautiful gift of adoption. Like Jerry said, whether if you were adopted or you took a beautiful child into your home and made that beautiful, wonderful bundle of joy part of the family. We really want to hear from you. So we want to celebrate adoption. We want to understand adoption. We want to appreciate adoption. We want to learn more about adoption. You see, there's all different angles that we take on Take Two. That's what it's all about, taking a fresh look at ourselves and the world around us. So please call in at 1-800-585-9396, or you can text us. You text the letters EWTN to 55000. You wait for a response, and then you put your first name in, your question or your comment, and we'll be happy to put it into the discussion. But don't sit this out. Don't just sit there and just absorb it all in. If you have something to share, we want to hear from you. So we're gonna go ahead and hit that pause button. When we come back, we're gonna go right to the phones and talk all about every single angle, every single nuance of adoption. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. This is your show, and we'll be right back.
We know you like listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, but have you thought about bringing them to your next event? No matter what type of event you're hosting, parish mission, conference, or retreat, trust Jerry and Debbie to make it come alive. Begin the process today of taking your presentation to the next level of success. For information on booking Jerry and Debbie, visit take2show.com, click on the J&D logo.
And this is an EWTN Bookmark Brief. I'm Doug Keck. I'm here with Susan Tassoni, author of St. Faustina Prayer Book for the Conversion of Sinners. We just finished an interview. Tell us, Susan, what this book is all about.
This book, Doug, is probably the only book that's out there that gives you practical insights, prayers, devotions on how to pray for the conversion of sinners, which includes our loved ones, our friends, our enemies. It's the most extensive. It's the most requested prayers that people ask for conversions, but there was no resource. And it's a worldwide request. So now we have the resource. So she helps us to live the message of conversion daily, how to avoid purgatory, and to be persistent and consistent in praying for others.
Susan Tassoni, author of St. Faustina Prayer Book for the Conversion of Sinners, published by OSV, available through the EWTN Religious Catalog, which is EWTNRC.com. You can buy it there. Thank you for joining us.
The EWTN Warriors Rosary is a fitting tribute to all the spiritual warriors who have stood by us over the years. Handcrafted, each rosary is a unique creation. Get yours today. Visit EWTNRC.com.
This is Cy Kellett, host of Catholic Answers Live.
This is Lauren Ashburn, EWTN News Nightly anchor and managing editor.
This is Father Mitch Pacwa. Thanks for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
All set to go to your phone calls here in just a moment on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Adoption is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Sometimes mothers find themselves in difficult situations, mothers and fathers, through a pregnancy and the birth of a child, and they just believe that the best thing for the child, what's in the best interest of the child, is to give that child up. That can be a very, very difficult thing. Maybe you are a mother who gave a child up for adoption. We'd love to hear from you on the program today. There can also be, I think, Debbie, some conflicting issues, and this is just reality. You know, if a person grows up having been adopted, then even though they may have the most loving home on the face of the earth, there could still be issues in their minds like, I wonder why my parents gave me up for adoption. Was I not wanted? Things like this. So if you were adopted and you've worked through those things and you just really have come to love and appreciate your adoptive family, let us hear from you. We're talking about adoption today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. 1-800-585-9396. We're going to start with, hope I get the name right, Lorraine in Rochester, New York, listening on the EWTN app. Hello, Lorraine. Welcome to Take Two.
Hello. Thank you for having me. And
Sure.
Thank you for this topic. It's one that's close to our hearts. I just wanted to share a wonderful story that our daughter, Phoebe Immaculata, came to us through adoption. My husband and I have a devotion to the Immaculate Conception, and almost 9 months to the day, we got a phone call from our agency letting us know that there was a match. And one of the first things we found out was that she was due to be born on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And so now we have our beautiful daughter with us, and we are just so overjoyed. Our family has been so excited, and she has brought us so much joy.
Lorraine, your daughter's name is obviously, I think I heard you say it correctly, Immaculata?
Her middle name is Immaculata, yep.
Okay.
Her first name is Phoebe, after Saint Phoebe.
Saint Phoebe,
who brought the gospel to Rome, yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. Wow. So I think it's safe to say that there was a divine hand in this in bringing your daughter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, how can you explain that? It's not an accident. That's why I really
Right.
believe. Yeah, I really believe in my heart of hearts that every single soul that is brought into this world is meant to have that wonderful supportive family around them. And look how you prayed, and on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, here comes your daughter. And
Absolutely. And she was she found us. We say that in adoption, that the baby finds the adoptive parents. And one thing, too, with our strong faith, we're a little concerned that, maybe because of our strong faith, and that's something we don't hide, we're quite proud of it, that maybe, birth parents wouldn't take to that or be a little bit put off by that. But in fact, God showed His mercy and His grace and let us know that the birth parents actually picked us because of our faith. And that was quite a encouragement to us. And there's so many other ways that God had revealed Himself to us. I'll tell you this really quick. I know you've got other callers. When my husband and I went to the hospital, we were there within the day that she was born. It was a community hospital. And as soon as we were able to meet our daughter in the newborn nursery, we looked up, and wasn't there a beautiful stained glass of the Immaculate Conception? And we just knew that was God's way of saying that, He had graced us with this beautiful baby and this beautiful soul.
Wow. 9 months to the day, you found out you were a match, and all these other signs as well. I'm telling you, Lorraine, this was definitely divine. And you know what? This could mean, obviously, it means that God has His hand on the whole process of this baby finding you, as you said. But what strikes my heart is this could, it may or may not, God only knows, but it could be a sign that she has, maybe a very special vocation or mission in life. And I'm sure as parents of faith, you're going to be very, very cognizant of teaching her to be open to that.
We think so, too. We think that there's something there. She's just a very special baby, and people are drawn to her. And I have to tell you a funny story. I had to quickly paint our nursery. Used to be an office, and we quickly painted the nursery. And I listened to you all the time. And so back in December, I was listening to you while I was painting the nursery. So when I'm in there, I think of you guys in the show. It was actually about nativity and how to share that with children. So I often think of that.
Wow, thank you, Lorraine. Well, thank you. Well, you're part of the Take Two family, and we just are so We feel so honored that you shared your story with us. I just have this, just my heart is just overjoyed. And I just think, how beautiful God plans everything out. And so your daughter, Phoebe, is very lucky. She has you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. We feel very lucky as well. And keep us in your prayers. We want to grow our family more.
Oh, good. Okay, well, we'll pray for that as well.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thanks, Lorraine. Okay, 1-800-585-9396. Tell us your adoption story today. Maybe you were the child who was adopted. Maybe you were a sibling in a family where there was a child brought in through adoption, a mother who had to make that hard decision, but you found out, God willing, it was the best thing for you. We're talking about the impact of adoption on people's lives. It's very, very common, and we want to hear your story. And because, Debbie, as we always say, you always especially like to say, there are people listening who may be in a situation, perhaps having difficulty conceiving, or looking at the adoption route or what have you, or a mother. Maybe there's a woman who's pregnant in a situation where she's wondering how she's going to provide for the baby. And so people are going to learn through this discussion that we're having today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to go right to Cheryl in Littleton, Colorado, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Cheryl. Welcome to Take Two.
Yes, hi.
Hi. How are you?
How are you, Cheryl?
I'm good, thank you. So my daughter is adopted from halfway around the world from Kazakhstan. And I adopted her as a single mom. And went through, I could say that, she was definitely meant to be, because I went through many trials and tribulations before meeting my daughter. And when I met her at 45 years old, everything just kind of came into place in terms of how my life looked, and that she was meant to be with me and my now husband, and we were meant to be with her. So wonderful experience.
And how old is your daughter now, Cheryl?
She just turned 12. And
she
we
just
met
turned
her when she was 1 year old.
Okay, and how does it work having an international adoption like you had? Would if your daughter wants to, is she able to go back? I mean, how does it work with the international adoption?
Yes, so she's a citizen of both the United States and Kazakhstan, and she can go back at any time. And in fact, we are going to do a heritage trip next year. I have pretty much become a student of adoption, and I've learned a lot from adoptive parents and teens, and go to a lot of workshops and conferences along the line. And I feel very strongly that not all, but a lot of adoptive folks do want to know their history, and even if they can, to meet their birth parents. So I was able to find my daughter's birth mom and her siblings. So we will be going back next year to meet them, and also obviously to see her country, and for her to go back to the orphanage and to see what that was like.
That's going to be a wonderful experience. We pray, Cheryl. Please keep us posted on that. We would love to hear how that works out. And I know Jerry wanted to jump in here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Cheryl, I was just curious, and this is also, I think, going to be helpful for a lot of people. We hear about international adoptions such as yours. Some people choose to look domestically here in the United States. Some people look into all various parts of the world. I'm just curious to know, was there something that initially drew your attention to Kazakhstan where you and your daughter were united?
So, yes, I was initially going to go to China because that's where single women went. And I had my best friend she adopted 2 boys from Kazakhstan. I really didn't know much about Kazakhstan. When I started to learn about Kazakhstan and the culture, and also their orphanages were supposedly a little better than others, and the process was quicker than other countries, I decided to go to Kazakhstan, and it went through, I wouldn't say easily. I mean, it's a lot of work, but in the scheme of things, the adoption went through very easily in a year, which is really kind of unheard of for international adoption. And unfortunately, a lot of countries are now closed to adoption internationally. So it kind of ebbs and flows, and that's sort of where we are right now, which is unfortunate.
So, Cheryl, you've studied this, you've gone to seminars and classes about adoption. Could you impart to all of our listeners maybe one of the misconceptions about adoption? Because we hear all the beautiful stories, which is wonderful, and then we hear some of the maybe more difficult situations that happen through adoption. What is some of the misconceptions that maybe we could clear up?
Well, I think that when you bring your baby home, if it's not a newborn, you really need to spend a lot of, which you would anyways, but a lot more one-on-one time with that baby if your baby is not a newborn, because particularly if they've been in an institution, their brains actually, because they don't get the actual I don't want to say the love, but they don't get the love that they would if you had a mom or a dad that was looking at this baby all the time and interacting with the baby. Their brains actually don't develop the way other babies would develop. So it's very, very important to spend a lot of face time looking at that baby, sort of Googling with that baby, Google eyes and all, just really spending a lot of time trying to get those neurons and things in their brain to develop. It's just really important.
You're referring to, are you kind of referring to like attachment disorder and stuff like that?
Correct.
When the baby, okay,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And,
but that's, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, Cheryl, that's good to know, because so many times with a baby, it's so natural to pick up the baby and, play with that baby and attach with that baby. But when an older child comes, you maybe are maybe thinking, I need a little bit more of a boundary because that child is a little bit grown up. But in essence, what you really want to do is kind of start over with that older child.
Absolutely. And, you want to seek out the resources that you have in your community. There's, in most cities, there are wonderful providers and folks that are trained in adoption. So it's always a learning. That's what I've learned. And I attend a yearly conference in Rocky Mountain National Park. It's a heritage camp, and they have it's for international adoption, but it's for every country. And we bring in experts from around the country that are really well trained in just identifying issues particularly with adoptive kids. And there are issues. So I do encourage people to just seek out other adoptive parents and learn what they're learning and understand what challenges they're having. And maybe you may have some of the same things, but there's always someone that's probably going through what you're going through, has gone through it. And always to seek out, I think talking to adoptive people is the best thing to do because they've been through it. They know, like we were talking before, about what issues that they maybe the fear of abandonment is coming up for them, or loss or grief, and I think it does come up for adoptive folks. But just to reach out and just find those resources, that's what I do.
Yeah. Great stuff, Cheryl. Thanks so much for joining us and for sharing what you did, and congratulations on that beautiful, beautiful girl who's now, I believe she said, 12 years old, so that is fantastic. 1-800, thank you, Cheryl, for the call. 1-800-585-9396. What is your adoption story in your family? Jill has one in Syracuse, New York, listening to EWTN on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Jill. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi.
Hi there.
So I was calling because I was adopted through Catholic Charities, and my biological parents were 17. And, in terms of just being adopted, I've always felt very wanted because my parents wanted to make a good decision for my future by giving me up for adoption being so young. And I grew up with my parents, my mom and dad, who wanted to give me all that they could. And, just have a positive experience with it. And then when I was 19, I was in college, I received a call from my biological father, who basically called to say, "Hi, I'm your dad." So it was a really big surprise and unexpected. But, that was something that, kind of developed into me having sort of a relationship with him as well. Not something that I sought, but that ended up happening.
Right. It evolved organically. Jill, are you a mom right now, or are you?
I'm sorry?
Are you a mom?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So then you know how what an absolute selfless, unbelievable gift it is for young parents to gift over a child so that the child can have a great life. And when you were talking about your biological parents doing that, all I could think about is the great love they had for you as a small child. They just wanted you to have the best life you could have.
They did.
Yeah,
and that's why I really do feel that when I hear about some adopted children feeling abandoned and things like that, I almost feel like I have, even though I've never met my biological mom, I feel like she's somebody who probably thinks of me and wanted the best for me. She did something that was amazing for me, and I'll always think of her like that. And it doesn't mean that I need to meet her. I feel that what she's given me is so much and just so priceless, and that she's still part of me, regardless of whether I ever meet her. And my biological father was able to give me some information about them, and just knowing that it was really her who kind of she said, this is what I want for me. And I'm amazed by it. And in fact, one thing that I have is a knit blanket that she made when she was a teenager to give to me so that I would have that. So that's something that I have that she made for me, and it's just great. I mean, it's just so nice to see that that's something that came with me, more or less, to my mom and dad who raised me.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's much more than just a blanket. It's a piece of your mom,
it's a
Jill.
Piece of her.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Well,
ahead,
Jill,
Debbie.
that's why I asked if you were a mom, because you can very intimately understand of the feeling of, I think about it all the time when I had my boys. If somebody knocked on the door and, I was in a place where I couldn't provide for my children, someone knocked on the door and said, I could give your kids a better life. The thought of handing them over, I mean, you'd have to be in a place where you are totally not thinking of yourself and totally thinking of that baby. And so you really only can relate to that when you're a mom, because it's a very strange feeling. And so that's why I'd just like to say, all the moms out there that have gifted their children over for a better life, I think are just special people that that I believe someday will be blessed for wanting the best for their children. And I think, Jill, you have a ministry in what your story, because there's a lot of people. You're right. I know of a lot of people, even my extended family. I have adopted cousins in my family, and they have that feeling of abandonment, and it's very sad. I pray that, Jill, you could tell your story more and more so that people really understand that the birth mom and dad really had to make that selfless, unbelievable gift, and it's hard to do when you're a parent. Really hard.
Yeah, I did. I always felt like I was more wanted because they wanted the best for me, and they wanted that so much that they were willing to let the right people raise me and give me what they couldn't at that age of 17. And that's not to say that it just means that's just age-related either. I think that there's circumstances in people's lives that prevent them from maybe giving them the stability that they could have in another home or in another environment or with different people. And to be able to look at that and see that it is itself a gift, and it is selfless. So it's
So
just
you're
a different point of view, I think.
But that's got to make you feel very special. I mean, that's why, and see, you're a testament to why it's so important that we drum into everybody's, being that we're here for a reason and a purpose. God has a divine plan for us, and it's so important that we let children come into this world, and so it's you are living proof how important it is. And I hope you tell your story over and over again, Jill. You're an amazing woman, and you've got a lot of love around you, lots of family members, which is great.
Amen. Thank you, Jill. We appreciate your call. We're going to let you go on that, and we've got that little hurdle we got to jump over here. It's a blessed one because our affiliates get to share with you what's going on locally in their area. By the way, thank you, affiliates. Yesterday was day one on AM 1260 The Rock in Cleveland, our newest affiliate. And if you are listening via some other method, maybe the EWTN app or online streaming or iHeartRadio or YouTube or what have you, and you want to be able to pop us on EWTN radio in your car locally, and you've got a Catholic Catholic station that doesn't carry it, or if you don't have a Catholic station, call EWTN. They can help you out in getting Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the air locally, or maybe even building a radio station, Debbie, which is it's a lot of work, but it's exciting. You and I have been a part of the growth of many radio stations, so we know it can happen.
And I think it's very necessary, Jerry, because Catholic radio is needed more than ever. And it's just a blessing to have in the communities. And believe it or not, there's a lot of communities that don't have local Catholic radio. And we need to. We need to go strong for future generations. So this is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we'll be right back.
It's May 16th. Today, St. John Nepomucene is honored as a model for confessors. He was the confessor for the Queen of Bohemia. In 1393, the king demanded that John reveal her confession, but he refused. He was tortured and killed, but never broke the seal of the confessional. Also, St. Simon Stock died on this day in 1265. At the age of 82, he was elected the General of the Carmelite Order. Under his direction, the order spread across Europe, opening new houses in England, France, and Spain.
Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Which child do you love the most? What an unfair question. Most parents would say, I love them all equally. Or some parents would say, well, I feel warmer towards the child I get along with better. It's understandable. I submit to you, the child you love the most is the one that's most difficult. If you view love as a commitment, effort, sacrifice, then the one that is toughest to raise is the one that you reach out to the most, you sacrifice for the most, and you work hard to raise well the most. Oh, it kind of puts it on its head, doesn't it? The one you love the most in terms of commitment is the one that at times is hardest to love.
Bishop Robert Barron talks about the importance of the National Catholic Register.
You know, the Register delivers something which is extremely important because you won't get it from the mainstream media, namely the Catholic context and perspective. The National Catholic Register brings a robustly Catholic take on the world, and that's indispensably important.
For a free 6-issue trial of the National Catholic Register, go to ncregister.com and click on the 6 free issue banner.
Always great to have you with us. And the only thing better than have you listening is have you calling in, sharing your take, or doing so via text or email, take2@ewtn.com. You can post comments on our YouTube channel. Jeff Burson is keeping an eye on that. Matt Gabensky screening your calls. Rich Jesse running the controls here behind the board there, behind the glass. Always wanted to say that. 800-585-9396, talking about adoption. Kathy has something to share with us in Fargo, listening to EWTN Radio on Real Presence Radio. Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Sure.
Our family's adoption story is that I'm the auntie to my youngest sister's 4 adopted children. They were each adopted separately. They are each partly Native American from different tribes, but they each have Native American blood in them. And they were each adopted as babies, newborns, which was in itself was remarkable. And they had some difficulties in utero with, the birth mom taking some drugs and alcohol and such. But the birth moms made such a loving decision in gifting these babies for adoption, and they now range in age from 19 to 11, 3 boys and a girl. The girl is Kateri, who was a Native American
Right,
saint.
how beautiful.
And my niece Kateri was able to be in Rome, in St. Peter's Square, for St. Kateri's canonization.
Wow, what a gift.
So she was there at her namesake's canonization, and these kids have been such an enormous blessing to our big extended family. So they've had just wonderful educational opportunities. My sister and brother-in-law have really sacrificed, to provide them with the opportunities they need, and these kids have just tons of aunties and uncles and cousins, and such an enormous blessing to the entire family. So that's our very positive adoption story.
Yeah, well, Kathy, I'm so glad that you shared that, and you add a really, I think, important element to the conversation here. This isn't just a baby coming into, a household of a couple, a mom, a dad, a single mom, perhaps single dad, but this really is, Debbie, it's a blessing that touches extended families like Kathy is talking about, and that just makes, it just rounds out a broader family all that much more, and I'm thinking of things like family gatherings, holidays, birthdays, celebrations. It's something that the entire extended family, friends, neighbors, more than just the family, the single family that's affected, can really benefit from something as beautiful as adoption.
Well, absolutely, Jerry. And I think you're touching upon something very, very deep. And Kathy, maybe you could affirm this. When it touches the extended family, there's something about adoption, I think, that is so unique and special, and definitely has the hand of God on it. And when it does, is there an element, Kathy, that you all are kind of waiting and watching and waiting to see how these beautiful children, what vocation in life they're going to have, or what purpose that they have derived for themselves? It's kind of interesting. I have found that with my cousins who are adopted, that it was this thing where we felt like, wow, they came into our family. This is definitely of God, and this. If it's of God, then there's a reason, and if there's a reason, what's the outcome? So is there that sense that this is very, very special?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know in some families, maybe the grandparents or some of the other family members don't necessarily like the idea of adoption, that, oh, yes, they're adopted, but they're not my flesh and blood, so they're not really part of the family. I've seen and heard of situations like that where the grandparents, for example, don't really take to the adopted children and pay more attention to the so-called biological children. But in our family, it's just been so beautiful all around. We just all rejoice and be glad, and the cousins think nothing of it. I mean, it's just pretty much one big happy family, with the normal family dynamics, but it's just really, really been special.
Yeah, Kathy and Jerry, hear me out on this one, because it's always fascinated me about that, what you just said, Kathy, about this idea of, they're not my flesh and blood. What cracks me up about that is, and I mean this tongue in cheek, is that when you're married, you're not flesh and blood with your spouse, but yet you're one. That's always fascinated me. I'm not flesh and blood with Marty. We don't share any bloodlines, but yet we're one in marriage. How much closer can you get at that? And but yet we use that same argument when it comes to, or that same, feeling when it comes to other situations. To me, that's never been a strong connector for me, flesh and blood. As a matter of fact, I feel closer to people that aren't my flesh and blood. So I don't know, Jerry, Kathy, do you know what I'm saying on that? It's just always fascinated me that people use that as a way of thinking somehow that's a connector.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, in my head, I understand that happens in some families, but in our family, it just wasn't like that. And
that's good.
I think that's a gift from God too, divine providence, that we just treasure family in almost any shape or form.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
No, I agree. I have friends who have adopted a son from Haiti, a daughter from China, and they just it's just like not even a consideration, that they aren't, from the same flesh and blood and so forth, maybe even the same race or nationality. It's just like, hey, they're our family, they're our children.
Exactly.
And they love and embrace them and raise them just with that in mind. And so, Kathy, thanks for gracing us with your thoughts on this. What a beautiful, beautiful testimony on adoption. Keep listening, and thanks for your support of Real Presence Radio and EWTN, and thanks for listening to Take Two. 1-800-585-9396 is the number if you want to join us.
Okay, next up is Richard in Odessa, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Hi, Richard. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing well, Richard.
Oh, doing great. I just want to say that, we adopted a little girl. She was from the family. She was my cousin's daughter. My cousin had decided that she was going to go through an abortion. And then my grandmother, she informed us about that she was going to do that, or she was or giving it for adoption. So we started talking to my cousin, and she said, "Well, if you all really want to adopt her, you can." And we said yes, but we want to make sure that everything's okay with your parents also. So we talked to her parents, and they all agreed. And she had gone already through 8 months of pregnancy, no prenatal care, no nothing. And we took her to a doctor, and the doctor said, "Are you sure that you want to go ahead and proceed with adopting this child? I can't guarantee you what how the baby's going to be born." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "We'll accept the child no matter how it's born.
Yeah, right.
It's a child of God, and we're just going to accept it." I said, I don't care what kind of a child, if it's born with any kind of disabilities or whatever. I said, we'll take the child. And we have a beautiful 31-year-old girl.
You're so lucky you have a girl. Girls are great.
That's right. And
yeah, and Richard and Debbie, how many stories like this are there? And it's really sad. It's unspeakable that any doctor would encourage a woman ever in any circumstances to consider abortion. Okay, but let's set that aside for now, as bad as that is. But how many times have there been possible diagnoses? Well, your child may be born with this, or could have this problem or that problem. God bless parents who say, you know what, this is our child. It's a child of God. It has all the inherent worth and dignity, and is a human life. So that doesn't matter. What matters is our love for this child. And so that's a beautiful testimony there. And this is within the family, Richard, you're talking about. Now, Debbie and Richard, I have another very, very good friend who he actually was adopted by his aunt and uncle. Because his mom and dad had some issues, and he calls his aunt and uncle mom and dad, and there were no issues there. And thank God he kind of had, if I can put it this way, that safety net to fall into there. And it turned out to be a tremendous blessing for him. So, yeah, go ahead, Richard.
No, I just want to say, it's been a blessing. And I named the child Angela because it was a little angel of God that we got.
I love that name, Richard. That is awesome. I love the way your family stepped in and just really rallied around and made sure that Angela had that beautiful, my goodness, she's in her 30s now. You're blessed. And I really believe in my heart of hearts that you're going to see those blessings all in eternity because of the way your family jumped in. Way to go, Richard.
She's married. She's got 2 children. And we love her to death.
Oh, so you're a grandfather, huh?
Oh, yeah.
What are you called, Grandpa, or what's your name?
They call me Papa.
Papa, I love that. Okay, Papa, well, tell Angela you guys are blessed. You have a beautiful family.
Thank you. God bless y'all, too.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe, I don't have personal experience of this, but Debbie, you have to think that anyone who grows up with the knowledge of having been loved so much, especially by a family, like you said, it may not be a flesh and blood child, but they were brought into the family out of love and embraced as though they were flesh and blood. This is a very special gift to a child, and as they grow up, I think in many ways those adults, they're going to be in a very special way, generous and loving and giving because of what they have received. So, great take from Richard. Just want to mention, too, that if you're looking for great news, Catholic News Agency, it's the only fast, reliable, and free Catholic news source that brings blogs, stories, opinions, and more to your fingertips. It's an online service from EWTN News. So for the latest Catholic news, visit CatholicNewsAgency.com.
Nice, very nice. Okay, Donna, up next in Michigan on Ave Maria Radio. That's where you're listening on. Hi, Donna. Welcome.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. I'm a birth mom. I'm a birth mother, and I say it proudly.
Okay.
I'm Catholic all my life, and I'm just going to take a 180 to where I have a couple of points I want to say. I know, Debbie, you were saying to someone else, what is your take on this? And so I'd like to give you my take to you and your audience on a couple of things. As a birth mom, that I know it's a small number of birth moms that anyone would encounter out there, but I have a lot to say, and I just want to say first, before I take the 180, that you live it every day. And that young woman who just called, I think from Pennsylvania, she's right. Her mother made a plan for her and her father, and I can promise anyone out there who's been placed for adoption, the birth parents never forget them, never forget the sacrifice, and we live it daily. And when I do run across kids who say they were adopted, I tell them this about their biological parents, that something greater. I often think of Abraham going to sacrifice Isaac for our Lord. And when I did this, I did have a fear of our Lord. I did try to follow the faith. Many around me were telling me, you're going to forego your scholarships to the University of Michigan. I was going to be a surgeon. I'm not, because I followed the Lord and things changed a little bit. But my Lord and my God is who I followed. Now, I also want to say we are all adopted sons and daughters of Christ, which I want to make that big statement loud and clear. We are all adopted sons and daughters of Christ. I was in a dark hole for a bit, about 11 months of my life, and not before that and not after that. Praise be to God. But Debbie, something you were honing in on and speaking with another caller about is something that I wanted to also speak to now, is that flesh and blood, not part of family. I've heard that same thing. I just saw a good old friend of mine roll her eyes that my son is back in my life. She literally forgot who she was standing in front of when I said he's back in my life, and she rolled her eyes. And I said, are we not all adopted sons and daughters of Christ? But a wise woman, adoptive mom, told me when I told her I was a birth mother in the most suffering kind of way. It is my cross I carry every single day, and I want everyone to hear that loud and clear. It is painful. And when people say, thank you for what you did, please, everyone, change your language. I get the language intellectually, but change the language to what you are doing. Because to this very day, everything is impacted by that decision and having that child be birthed and be a child of God on this earth. So everything, every day, it's a gift to God, and it's a cross at the same time. I will carry this cross and joy to my death till I see the Lord again. And I think in the Catholic community, we have to be aware of that and treat each other in our churches, the adoptive kids, the foster kids who are suffering themselves, I call it now, from womb to tomb to room, right in the middle. All these kids out there need to be pulled out of adoption or pulled out of foster care for adoption, those kids that were not so lucky, and we have many of them. So, and I also want to say a shout out to all my sisters in Christ, and maybe not in Christ listening, who were so pressured like I was, even in the Catholic communities, to have an abortion. You are my sisters. I have hugged many of you and said, I'm like you. And they look at me in shock and say, in what way? And I say, in this way. I understand the pressure. I was 1 foot in the other direction of what I did because of the pressure from society and people around you. So we need to have mercy, and many of us do, but we need to try harder. Today is a new day. I tell everyone, reach out to those who had abortions because they are like me. I just went 1 foot the other way by the grace of God, but I felt that pressure. I know that pressure, and I understand the route they took with all the pressure around them. I know many of them are grieving. So my sisters are the ones who had abortions who have left the church. And we all need to get on our knees and pray for our church. Because everyone I know that's left our church had abortions, male or female. And I think I just want to close, and I'll hang up.
No, don't hang up, Donna.
The flesh and blood thing, Debbie, you talk about is that woman. I didn't get it out. She said this to me when she embraced me, and I told her I'm a birth mom. She adopted from here and other countries, and she said to me, tell them this. And I've been speaking to this just recently. Tell them this. She said, I tell people this all the time. I took a stranger, a male stranger, into my house, and they all say, really? Why did you do that? And she says, yeah, I did that because I was called to do that. And they say, why? And she said, well, it doesn't stop there. I brought his family in, too. And they say, what were you thinking? What are you doing? And she says, yes, I call him my husband.
That's what I was relating to. Yeah, Donna, a couple things I just wanted to share at the beginning of your take on this. Yeah, you talked about the gal that called. Her name was Jill from Syracuse, because I want to connect you. Because remember, we're all family.
Jill.
Take two family. Yeah. Jill from Syracuse. Donna, you have a beautiful, beautiful heart, and you speak from your heart, which I love. I absolutely love. And the one thing I just wanted to say is my takeaway from your story is that we need to drop those walls and all become family, a Christian family, and to support one another and to stop getting in our own tunnel vision. And I have to tell you, Donna, I have been estranged from my two boys for almost 10 years. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of my well-intentioned friends who go on with their lives in their households because they have their nice little tidy family, and they don't realize that it extends outside of that.
It's exactly what myself and others recently have been speaking to, seeing it more and more. We are not in an enclave unto ourselves.
Exactly.
Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. Jesus commands us to love your neighbor as yourself. It is not our own little compact birth family. When we are adopted sons and daughters of Christ, that Jesus is telling us something by those very, very important words. Community, communion, first communion, the Eucharist, communion, and those who are not receiving the communion, because I know there's Protestant brothers and sisters listening to this program, communion, community. It's all about people and children being children of Christ. Right. And so you are so correct, Debbie, in that we have to push the envelope and those walls out and out and out. We need to be greeters in our parishes. We need to drop those walls that you just mentioned. So many of my family members, and I just hear this repeated over and over again, and it's a sadness deep, not even deep in my heart, every day on my mind. All the sisters who have left the church because they think they cannot come back to the mercy of God. And we all who are adopting out there, need to speak on that too. No, there's mercy here in every way for children and for parents. Whether you aborted or whether you're a sinner as a birth mother like me, I'm a sinner. Okay? I'm a sinner. I try every day. I might fall off the wagon, but I try to follow sinners, the Lord, and that's the best I can do. Right. And we need to reach out more actively proactively to our sisters and brothers that think they have sinned greatly, they cannot come back to the Lord. So I would urge everyone listening to go do something today. Today, Christ gives us a new day, in the dawning of this day, to go and reach out to those not in the church. Because
and Donna, we have to change things one step at a time. So here's how we do it. When we say to you, Donna, we love you, you're our sister in Christ, we mean it. And that's how we have to do it one step at a time. Wouldn't you agree, Jerry?
Absolutely. And yeah, you're so right, Donna. It's a great message that mercy is available no matter what we have done. And of course, there are things that are more serious than others that we offend God with and injure ourselves with, but that doesn't mean the mercy is not there. And so thank you for opening our eyes again to that, Donna, and reminding us of that. We appreciate it so much. And thank you for your very beautiful and passionate take on this. And we do hope that you'll keep listening. Feel free to call the program here anytime, Donna. We appreciate that. We just got limited time here, so we're going to try and move along to a couple of these other callers. John in New York City has us on Sirius XM 130. Hello, John. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. You're on the air. Hi, John.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Good, good. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I'm a New York attorney. I don't really specialize in adoption, but I am an adopted person. And, you know, I think the one thing that hasn't been mentioned is the adopted child. It takes a lot of love to adopt a child, and it takes even more love to convey to that child that they were wanted. I see it now at 53, but I didn't see it at 6 or 7. And I remember, I guess, a child in the neighborhood must have been told by their parents that that little boy was adopted. And I remember a little girl saying, "Ooh, I could never marry somebody like you. You don't even know who your family is."
Oh, no.
And I carried that until I was in my 20s.
Oh, man.
I also remember, I was blessed. I grew up saying the rosary. I grew up going to Mass. I remember 2 girls around the corner from me that were adopted. And I was also blessed, for some reason, I always say God blessed me with a great mind and I guess not a lot of sense to quit. So I found my birth parents, I found my birth mother when I was about 22, when you weren't supposed to find your birth mother.
John, excuse me, John, I got to jump in on that. You can hear the music there that we're getting ready to close the program. I apologize. I always hate to jump in on somebody like that, but you made a great point there. As I said at the opening of the show, this can be very conflicting at times for the one who is adopted, but that can be a process, and there is healing available for that and growth. And John, it sounds like you really grew into a fantastic appreciation and love of the family that took you in, and thank God they did. And it sounds like you're a great guy now, John, and we really appreciate you joining us on the program.
And Eileen and Patricia and Greg and Susan and the others, so sorry we couldn't get to you. Please email us if you want to, take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. Have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.